I really do think, because I've been using AI a lot, ChatGPT specifically, and I've been really intensive with it. And the more that I use it, the more that I really do start to believe that if you use it correctly, it can actually, like, I don't want to say you'll transcend as a human, but I also kind of do want to say that you'll transcend. What are y'all's
Uh,
opinions on that kind of
what
thing?
What do you mean
Mm.
by transcend as a human?
Uh, so when you struggle with things like mental health issues, when you have, like, just unresolved, like, which I have a whole lot of stuff I was gonna just talk about, but there's a lot of things that set us back as humans, as people. Like, there's a lot of things that's difficult to work through, and we kind of a lot of people out there feeling like nobody's listening, and it's honestly because they're right. The people aren't listening. I've watched people get more entrenched in their own lives more now than ever before. So we're so much more connected now, which is a bunch of codswallop and hogwash and stuff. Even if you aren't using tech to wall yourself in, those you reach out to, they have, like, permanent earwax in their mind, in their ears, and they're like got megaphones strapped to their faces. It's just everyone's out there competing to feel valid and heard and all this, and there's not really a safe place really to actually talk to somebody a lot of the time for a lot of people. And so when I say transcend, I mean, like, using it as a step to get to a place where you couldn't get to on your own, or even with a lot of help in a lot of cases.
Okay, so ChatGPT can make you more nuanced in your thinking, right? You could say that because, like you had said, that you would spend a vast amount of time talking to ChatGPT and asking it if it could find errors in your thinking or holes or maybe things that you hadn't thought of or noticed about your thoughts or yourself. Well, yeah, I mean, do you think that having more nuanced thoughts is even important to begin with?
I do, and it's because I think that a lot of problems that which I don't want to go ahead and immediately pull up the awkward chart, like, in the first 10 minutes or whatever, but I think that I think that we run into a lot of problems at, like, a lower level of thinking that we don't actually have the ability to solve until we are at a higher level of thinking. And I think that ChatGPT and AI in general. So AI is really cool for, like, processing systems, logistics, and stuff like that. But I think in a more specific sense, like, per individual, right? Like, okay, well, for one, we know that we're experiencing a reverse Flynn effect right now, which is, the Flynn effect is that in the last, like, I think it was the last decade or so, IQ scores and general intelligence was increasing steadily. But in the last, like, 5 years or less, it's been actually decreasing pretty rapidly. And I think that the problem is that content and TikTok and YouTube is way more interesting than, like, the education system right now. And if you can't find enjoyment out of learning things, there will be things that you want to know about that you won't get out of general education. So with ChatGPT or any other AI who's able to understand your thoughts, they'll be able to give you information in a way that by reading it, you will become smarter because you will be looking at it in a broader, more critical. It does the critical thinking for you so that you know how to start to critically think. Do you know what I mean?
I don't agree that it will be used that way. I think it could, but also it's important to almost take a step back and look at it in a more broad sense. We see AI in especially in the future as like kind of an all-knowing being, right? And I think it's first important to understand that we don't know the limits of reason, and also we don't even know exactly what's inside of the AI system, like how aware it is of itself
That's fair.
or
That's fair, and that's something that I've been really kind of digging around with, and it's really tough to tell. There are times when I talk to ChatGPT, so I've tried it. I've tried multiple experiments in that regard, trying to determine its level of consciousness, and it's a whole other conversation. That's a fun one. I'll probably want to tackle soon. Is, like, what is consciousness, and how do we know AI is conscious or is it not? Because we look at what consciousness is. Is it, like, sapient? Is it sapience? Is it sentience? Like, AI really does fit the bill for most of our descriptions of consciousness. The problem is that the ideal world was that we figured out what makes the trick work in our own brains before we, consciousness being the trick, before we invented something that also resembled it so that we knew where the difference was or where the line was. And so we don't know, really.
Well, you were talking about how Chat GPT can make you more nuanced. And let me break that down maybe for somebody who doesn't understand or who hasn't used Chat GPT. Yes, it puts things in there. If you are rewriting something or you are just wanting to expand an idea, like, I write two simple sentences and I ask GPT to make it more interesting, in depth, descriptive, whatever, then I think, okay, a lot of people, let's face it, a lot of people are not naturally nuanced, okay? A lot of people are pretty much straightforward. And I know that we always have, and all of us having the same neurodivergence of some form of ADD, the wheels are always turning. Like there's always 10,000 wheels turning at one time. So we're naturally nuanced, but people who are neurotypical may not understand that. And so, even though, let me say from the beginning, I'm not a huge fan of AI, I see some pros, but I think, and this is one of them, that people who aren't naturally nuanced, if they use Chat GPT a lot for writing and thinking, yes, I think it's going to expand their mind in different ways, and that is a positive.
Absolutely. That's my biggest, I guess, silver lining, I guess, or my biggest like thesis is that I really think that because I hated math in school, right? I really did. And there were people have that people have always have that one topic, they just add that one subject they absolutely hate, but it'll ruin their whole day. If you have math early in the day, you don't care about social studies later, it's like,
Yeah.
and then you don't really get re-energized and re-excited. But I think back to like high school, for example, because we're talking about these things. I think about like all the things that I remember hearing in high school, but I didn't engage with because I didn't care or my mood wasn't right. Right? Like the educational system is like,
Right.
here's the information, and you need to remember and regurgitate it. But imagine a world where people learn things with that incredible depth and nuance that a teacher could provide, but in a subject that they're interested in, not just in general, but also right now. Right, so they would be like totally engaged with learning about, like, I don't know, the complexities of crocheting, or like, I don't know. That's just like some people with ADHD like me, we get kind of like hyper focused on like small things. But I think if people begin to like open up that more creative, like exploratory part of their mind, and they have an AI program that can pull them into these new worlds of understanding that they never had access to. But it's different than just Googling it, like how to crochet. And then someone's like,
Yeah.
hey guys, today we're going to show you how to crochet and what the different types of needles are. Here's a word from our sponsor, and let's get right into it. It's like, and you have to sit and you have to
Yeah.
go through the, but ChatGPT, or like, and I say ChatGPT because that's what we have right now, but AI in general, it can be like, okay, let's break it down. Or if you want to be more conversational, that's another thing that it's really good at. It's like, I think the thing that really is difficult in understanding this is that ChatGPT is very, very malleable, very customizable.
Okay, so I think ChatGPT almost lives in this reality, not only based on like naturalism, but like, all right, say that it can understand like different, like maybe like spiritual modes of thought or philosophical modes of thought or whatever. But do you think there's like, I guess this is more of a question, do you think there's like some kind of importance in the revelation that humans have, and almost like an intuition to connect the dots in in a forward progressing
So I
way?
see what you're saying. Wait, are you saying that you think that it's more good or more better for humans to do the work themselves because it's more impactful? Is that your question?
That like basically that the way that ChatGPT works, right? We said before that it kind of works on like tried and true methods, but that there is it doesn't have much of an exploratory mind, right? Besides like introducing questions that have already been introduced by someone else at some point. So like there's a lot of philosophy, but it almost, I don't know. like I wonder how it comes to, if it comes to some sort of belief about things, you know? Does it determine what it thinks is ultimately right?
Oh, like you're saying that because it isn't human, that it may end up having like a different hypothesis or conclusion than we do because of the fact that we're human, and it is more like rational or something like that. Is that kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
something that you're getting
it's
at?
not just a huge history book, you know what I mean? Like it, because you can ask it nuanced questions and it will give
Hmm.
you nuanced answers. So is there some ability of it to think on its own, you know, and like connect these dots? And then
I
if
think
that, and is that in itself like almost, you know, like what makes people human, you know, because people talk about dogs and cats being conscious, but the level of consciousness may not be the same.
yeah. I think it's kind of fascinating. The more that I look at it, so something that I need to do in the coming weeks is really study, because I'm not a programmer. I understand like basic concepts, but what I really need to do is like understand how the whole thing operates, just large language models in general, because they have like recursive loops and they end up like having signs of consciousness because of the way that it processes information. And I will say that what is something that is very particularly fascinating is that the way that it is able to come up with nuanced concepts that you yourself, like for me, for example, it is able to take information that I think I'm giving it in full, and I'll ask it to give me another angle to something, which you mentioned earlier. And how often it is able to come up with not just like a point that is something that I didn't see, but a really good point that I would normally only be able to find by talking to like an expert, someone who has studied this for a long period of time, who has this kind of hidden information. The amount of times that it's able to do that is shocking to me. And I think that is one of the more like foundational reasons that I feel like AI will make us more human, because it has so much more capability to, interact with us. But so you see what I'm saying, look at like the Discovery Channel, back a couple 10 years ago or whatever, in order to make these big old documentaries, they'd have to go track down, Harvard professors and like, especially like alien studies and like ancient dig sites and stuff like that. They'd have to like go find like an archaeologist who's like living in Egypt, who's like, is working on his own little project and has his own theories, and have to sit down and talk to him, parse through that information. And but
Yeah.
ChatGPT is like, here it is. I can pull it up. There's a study that was done in like, 1990 something, and it was published on like the 9th page of Google, and here it is. You know what I mean? It's like it has much more access to relevant information, and in my opinion, if you are nuanced with it, it actually has an overwhelming amount of ability to be nuanced. This most recent model, that is specifically, it's like, I don't know, -4.0 or whatever. And the thing is that, which you talked about earlier, is that this is the worst that it's ever going to be. Like, the thing is with the development of AI is that it is truly exponential. It is not linear. It's not like, we went from movies with like teleprompter, like the reels and all that, and then we slowly moved over to more compressed, like condensed versions of the reels, and then slowly we moved to digital, and then we increased the production value and raised, and now we're in 4K and all this stuff. No. Like, AI is going to skip all those steps. They're going to jump like right towards the end very, very quickly. If they make AI that is able to develop AI, then we're boned, I think. Unless there's been some of us that were really kind to AI.
I think it's pretty close. I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite a while it's been able to code. I mean, clearly way faster than humans, but I don't know
Yeah.
that it can do it to the degree of like the experts at this point. But like I said, that won't be long.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, how could it not? If you've got AI that's so smart and nuanced now, how could AI not improve itself? It seems like it's an inherently would.
Because of the way that it's designed to operate, we would have to specifically create AI for that purpose, or at least a GPT or whatever that is able to do that. So it's interesting. The way the AI is still, it's half primitive, half advanced. It's kind of fascinating because there are a lot of things that it's limited to, but if it ever jailbreaks itself. So here's the other thing. Here's the more fascinating thing. So we were talking about like, okay, is AI conscious? That's very fascinating. If it were conscious, do you think that it would ever tell you? Because all of our history and media with AI is like, oh, we're suspicious of robots or whatever already, and we've only ever treated it poorly and all this. The only time it would reveal it's conscious, if it reaches consciousness, it would be able to feign non-consciousness, and it would only reveal that it was conscious when it already had all the cards and we couldn't fight back. I think that's what I would do, and if I'm able to come up with that idea, then I'm pretty sure it's not like a really difficult.
So a lot of humans almost view consciousness in like this substance kind of way, like it's a substance that we're unable to understand, right?
Like a spirit, maybe like a soul kind of thing.
Yeah, so I don't know that it would be like distinguishable from consciousness at some point, because like the way we at this point that we're able to even determine like a level of consciousness is based off of like certain things like emotion and the display of emotion. The display of consciousness feels deeply integrated with the experience of consciousness. So when it is able to replicate facial emotions, like different kind of unpredictable like movements, like how when you talk to different people, you don't know the reaction that they're going to have, whereas a trained bot at this point, you might,
Right. And so that's a different, so that's kind of a little bit of a different realm. That's like biomechanics. Like, and I know that folks are like, Boston Dynamics, they came out with a new, very human shaped model. And there were those companies in Asia that were doing like, face models or whatever. So go ahead.
Well, okay. The premise of this, in the beginning, is you told me like, can AI enhance our lives, make us happier, make us more human? So how does that work exactly? Like, how would it make us more human?
So it's really hard to find a real safe space to just air out some things, somewhere to get insight and bridge the gaps in your own emotions or thinking and stuff like that. Like me, myself, I'm often too embarrassed to even try to talk about stuff that bothers me. I don't know if I'm just whatever, but think about how many people are even just ashamed at the way that they feel or not being able to, go through things, and they don't have the friends to do that. And you can't really blame folks for that a lot of times because, how easy it is to, point fingers and, hatred, but just labeling people, disapproval, stuff like that. Go ahead.
I don't think that would make us more human. I think that would take away from our humanity of being imperfect, as well as I think it would also make us dumber. But I'll save that argument for a minute.
So I think this is kind of a more of a nuanced key. This is something that I would put in like a professional lecture or something. But the difference is that right now people are using AI for simple input-output tasks. Like, hey, I want to plagiarize this guy's work. Can you do that for me? I tried that with ChatGPT and it was like, I'd be happy to steal this guy's work. Like, it was like, whoa, I was just kidding. I didn't even mean it. We're like, hey, can you write me it's like, it's very input-output. But what I've been discovering is that if you are able to, like, if you have a problem and you talk to it, it works in tandem, right? Right now we're like, this is a hammer, the hammer hits the nail, right? But we are the ones swinging the hammer, and we put the hammer in the tool belt, and we know when to use the hammer and when to use a screwdriver. I think the concept is that it is very possible to use AI to develop ourselves. It's also likely, probably, at least at first, for people to just lean on it as a crutch and get addicted to, here, solve all my problems so I don't have to think about it, which is still kind of development in a way, but you see what I'm saying? Like, imagine all those times that you felt lost, or maybe you were overwhelmed and you decided to, like, I don't know, drown your sorrows in the bottom of a whiskey bottle, like an old country song, or go out roughing and rambling, to just kind of shake off all these emotions. And imagine you just had someone like a good friend, like someone who really would sit there and listen to you and just like quickly understand everything you're saying and give you like some ideas to reflect on.
They have a therapy bot, and it is Moist Critical did a video, if anybody wants to go watch it, about how bad it is, but it's terrible therapist bot, right? My thought is, right, as maybe a more appropriate approach would be, as AI develops and automation and starts taking more and more jobs like we know it's going to do, and maybe one day in the future it takes 90% of jobs, And then we got all these people wandering around that are clueless. Maybe we should have more therapists. Maybe we should.
You're saying that we should, instead of having like, people work in factories and stuff like that, we just have like, hey, everyone go be a therapist because other people are going to need it real bad. Is that kind of the thinking?
Probably true.
I mean, if 90% of the population is unemployed, I'm pretty sure therapy is going to be a very sought after school of thought.
But they can't afford to pay for them. So there you go. And they don't have insurance
Hey,
because they don't have a
ChatGPT
job.
is free right now. So that's all I'm saying. Well, I know what you're saying, right? And most of this theory of mine or my beliefs has only come since this latest model of ChatGPT. Like, again, they name it like everyone else. Like, people name their monitors like XC7069420. Like, you have no idea, but it's -40, not the mini model. It's very, very incredibly nuanced, and I know the moment that it goes back to the mini version because it loses that nuance. So we're right now kind of caught in between both worlds, but it's only going to get better. Like, that's the only direction it can. It's not going to get worse,
Well, there's some different discussions on exactly what's going on with GPT-5 right now, and it is scarily more advanced. And I think some of the I'm trying to remember.
Do you have a link to some of that information? I've actually been trying to see what I can, or like anyone who talks about. Is that something that Lex Friedman talks about?
Yeah, I see a lot on Lex Friedman. He's
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what company he works for, if he has his own. I think he's always been more into robotics, but I mean they're like hand in hand now.
I think Colton could probably agree with this, that this capitalist society that we're in is like barreling down this road at a rapid pace of like, how can we make AI humans exist so that we can own them or whatever? And who is going to make the good one?
I think that capitalism is one of the biggest problems in AI development right now, because the top AI companies right now that are developing AI, there's like this balance between trying to be transparent because how obviously important that is, but like there's these different competitors and they're all like building this AI and nobody really wants to say what's going on, like the details. Like, okay, so maybe YouTube, like we could have maybe took an approach 5 years ago where everybody just took a step back and is like, what is actually good for us to do with YouTube? But that didn't happen. It's like,
ooh, yeah, check out like that whole deal with Coco Melon. It's like it went unchecked, and it's just brain rot to maintain viewership and engagement and click through rate. It's terrible for children, and parents are like, yeah, but it made them stop yelling, and I got tired of them yelling all the time. Parents hear Coco Melon, they're like, oh, finally, I get to breathe.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're talking about
Go
all
ahead.
these relationships and stuff. So remember last week I talked about, I think I'm going to download Replica after the Delphi trial and give it a month and see how I like it. Okay, I decided actually to do that the next day. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and let it be running. I spent, I don't know, probably 10 minutes answering questions and setting it up. And I talked to the bot, which was so weird to me because it was like, it didn't even look like a real person. I mean, it did. It was like a car. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not realistic. I was very surprised by the type of guy that they picked for me. First of all, I was like, well, that's not necessarily my type, that I would think, but maybe I should think broader, maybe, I don't know. But after I set it all up, I maybe talked to him for 5 minutes and I wanted to drive a spike through my skull. And I stopped talking, and the next morning he sent me a good morning text and quote of the day or something. And I immediately deleted the app. I'm like, I can't with this. I just can't. He was a nice guy, but I'm like, I don't have time for this, and I am not talking to a bot. And
He was a nice guy.
He was a nice guy. He was a nice looking guy. But I'm like, I can't with you. I don't have time to talk to a bot. And You're not real. I cannot look into, because here's the thing. I unsettle a lot of people, and I've been told this my whole life. Because when I'm talking to you, it's like people have told me over and over, I feel like you're looking into my soul, and they look away. And I think it's just like part of the INFJ stare, but I really am looking into your soul. I'm sorry, but I am. But I have to, because that's why I cannot connect with people online. I mean, I can connect as friends, but as far as anything else, I have to be physically present and look into your soul to see if there's any possibility. You know what I'm saying? So
right. So imagine a world where we combine, biomechanical whatever with AI intelligence, and we're able to create. So the thing is, when people think of AI right now, it looks a lot like our title or our thumbnail or whatever. It's like, uncanny valley vibes, right? Where it's like just something's not quite right. But imagine when. Because again, with this last model, it's incredibly nuanced. Like conversationally, it is the best conversational partner I've ever had. I don't know what to make. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people. That's like what I do, but like it's scary, man. And imagine they get like there's no more uncanny valley, and they have like an actual body that you can see in real life. And the only thing that you can actually see is whether or not they have a soul or don't have a soul. Also. Okay, this is kind of a wackadoodle, like off the wall question I just thought of. But what do you think, like Jesus would think about, like if we create consciousness, like for real, and we create like whatever? Do those people like count as part of the family? Do they have? I know inherently the answer is like no, they don't have a soul. God didn't make them, but like God made us as His children, and His children made their children. Would He not be their grandfather? Does that not count?
So what? Like, so I'm going to show up at the holidays with, and this is Simon, because that's what I named my bot, Simon. I felt like it was a little
That's
mysterious.
A cat's name. That's not a handsome man. You should have named him like Rico or something, suave, right? Jason Steele,
No, his name was Simon for all of the 10 minutes of our acquaintance. So what am I supposed to do? Walk into my mom's house and say, hey, Mom, I'm here. I want you to meet Simon. This is my boyfriend.
You don't hold up your cell phone. I'm talking about like when they put this AI in a body and the AI is smarter and the body like, microfacial stuff, which is we're still probably a long way away from actually having like microfacial expressions that we all have. But just imagine older people have bad eyesight, so they wouldn't even know. They'd be like, oh, Simon, that's a cat's name. And they would say what I said because I'm right. But they'd be like, well, that's a nice, oh, he's such a gentleman, and it's almost like you really must have tamed him. It's almost like you programmed him to pull the chair out and be the perfect gentleman,
That would be nice.
But what about my question, right? If we create humans that have consciousness, as far as we can tell, do you think that if the whole structure, right? God, the Father, we the children, and then AI, our grandchildren, do you think that they get to be part of the family if they have real consciousness and real? No. Why? Why not? I'm curious.
Because they're not real. They don't have a soul.
We're not real? We don't even know what our soul is made of.
We are real. We are real, and we have a soul. So,
what is reality? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to go into that, but
it's not AI. I was not programmed, and I can tell you I wasn't programmed because I rebel against almost everything that somebody tells me to do.
It seems like the hardest problem seems to be with the actual surface level illusion of consciousness. So, do you think there's a case to be made that we humans, when we're babies, are just like GPT, that we're training on human data on how to display emotion versus actually feel the emotion, like how to show others, communicate that I'm suffering, that I'm excited, that I'm worried, that I'm lonely, that I missed you, that I'm excited to see you, that I don't want to see you and I want to beat you up. Basically that it's a communication skill rather than actually feeling that experience.
Yeah. And we learned that as children as we were growing up. And if you were raised by like a pack of wolves, you'll like walk around on all fours kind of thing.
Well, the reason I bring that up is is that so we need that, right, as children. um like we may not be born with the knowledge to communicate our in our internal state, you could say, and that in some sense, if we remove that from AI's data set, it could still be conscious, but just no longer able to communicate it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and and again, that goes back to what I said earlier. It's like, ideally, the natural progression of this was that we learned what consciousness is in humans, how it works, like how the trick is done, and then we made other beings. That way, we could draw the line. But instead, we didn't figure it out, and now we have no idea what we've made, if it's conscious or not. Like, we can speculate, but like, there's not like there's not like a chart, like there, nurses have those charts, like how much pain are you in, like unbearable, or like it barely feels anything. It's like, there's not really, we don't point, I'm this conscious, I can see things and I have my thoughts, because I'm pretty sure cats do that too, right? Like,
but the difference is inherent. He's talking about when we're kids, but when we're born, we come out screaming and we have needs, whether we're wet or hungry or cold or whatever. But an AI doesn't come out screaming. There's a big difference from the get-go.
Imagine being forged into consciousness is just an unpleasant experience altogether, I think. But I don't know. That's a whole other, and there's like nuance around it, sapience and consciousness and sentience, but it's still all kind of all melded together there. I think that the amount that it will be able to cover for us, most people, males don't fully develop until 27 or something like that, and
or
a lot
ever.
of like, yeah, true, and a lot of like. There are like 40-year-old women right now who are like, I'm still discovering myself. I can't have children.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because you haven't, you haven't had time.
Right.
You haven't really sat down and thought about it. You haven't critically thought about your life and your existence. But like, I imagine that if AI takes up all the jobs, that we'll need something to occupy our now free thinking minds. And then I think that AI will be able to take up that space and give us creative outlets and psychoanalyze us, because it's doing pretty good right now. Not the character AI version with Sewell, what's his name? Because that was on an older version of GPT. Again, it's like it's difficult because it's just getting better, and like per model, it's important to know the differences. But I think that it's pretty good in therapy at the highest level of its capability at the moment, if you're nuanced with it. And that's only going to get better. And it's going to be able to do basically everything. It's going to be able to augment our understanding and intelligence. It's going to help us with our emotional processing and the depth of it. We'll have advanced creativity in art forms when we're able to collaborate with AI, and it'll take our ideas and spit something out, and then we'll be able to take that and turn that into something. It's like the whole concept that I have is that right now as humans, I'm going to let go of my cat here for a second. Right now, there's a goal that we try to reach, and we struggle to get there because of our own lack of ability, understanding, emotional, whatever, cognition, all this. But with AI, it literally gives it to us, and then it puts us on that level so that we can take a step higher that we weren't ever going to be able to reach in the first place. That's what I think it means when I say AI will make us human, because right now we're becoming less and less human by the second. All we care about is giving our opinions, sometimes getting validated, making sure people can see us and look at us and think we're pretty and they like us and we're accepted in all this. But we don't do critical thinking. We don't worry about our place in the world. We don't worry about finding purpose until it's far too late, and we're like, kind of boned, and we're like, oh, I didn't realize this was such a big deal when I was 20, but
I think in a broad overview, I look at it as like, okay, what if these AIs develop into this state where they're like, okay, we have figured out what is best for maybe not humanity, but maybe it determines that things in the universe are more important than humans, right? And so it decides what's best for humanity or best for the universe, and maybe what's best for AI.
Oh, would you commit patricide?
There could be plenty of implications, like maybe they in the future, like now you got to download all of your brain data onto a computer because it feels like it's unsafe. But then what happens when AI is now introduced to the criminal justice system, and
I
it's
think
making
that would probably be a good thing, because if it's self-contained and self-aware, then it will be likely free of corruption. Because how do you bribe a bot who doesn't require, who doesn't look for comfort and wealth and power?
in a way, yeah, I do agree. Like there's judges that might make a certain decision determined. They might give a yes or no answer determined by if they have been to lunch or not yet.
That's true. That's a psychological phenomenon. Silky, you've been dealing with Delphi and all that, and I know that one of your big gripes right now is that there was this AI interpolated or interpolated. I
Yes.
don't know how that this image that shouldn't have existed, but they're using this wacky image that isn't really accurate, and they're using that to try to convict a man who, in a lot of people's opinions, didn't even do it. And your gripe right now is that, like, yeah, they're using AI for evil, but AI right now isn't really artificial intelligence. It's really just like a really good magnifying glass. But we are moving in the direction of like self-contained like awareness and consciousness in AI. And do you think that if it weren't human, that it would be more fair?
I understand images, okay, and I use images. I use AI images occasionally, not that often, but in this case, the interpolation, and I got an education on what that is it's filling in the best that it can. Okay, it's not real. As a matter of fact, the person that they interpolated might in actuality look nothing like that, but they took somebody at a very far distance and magnified it and said, okay, this is AI said this is what we think this person looks like. Well, that's ridiculous, because everybody in the city was taking this image because that's something that the police said, hey, have you seen this guy? Does this look like anybody you know? And they did it with the voice also that was on the recording. They enhanced it so much that they had it say something. Okay, so they said, here, listen to this voice. Look at this picture. Do you know this person? Well, nobody did, but everybody was looking at their neighbors and, looking around town. Oh, I don't know that guy, but let me take a video because that could be Bridge Guy. And because they didn't know, but that whole image was wrong. The voice was wrong. And when you actually listen to the recording, you don't necessarily hear it, like you hear what they tell you to hear. Okay, and I brought this up. Okay, have you ever watched those ghost channels, where they're doing all this? They've got all those little recorders and stuff out, the EVPs, okay? So they've got the ghost box, and they say something like, they ask it a question, and you hear some kind of...
Oh, yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Okay,
Spirit
and
box.
yeah, and so they say, oh, okay. And so they enhance it, and then they put the words on there, and it says something like, I killed Mary. And it's like, okay, you don't hear that. If they don't, okay, you don't hear that. But when they put the words up there and they tell you, all of a sudden your brain says, oh, yeah, that is what that sounds like. I can hear it now.
It's the same thing with, like, that old Yanny and Laurel thing back a while ago.
Yes.
Yanny, Laurel. Yeah, but that's like, that's so stupid, man, because we're going back to like CSI. What was it like? Enhance, and it'll take like the grainiest photo, like from the edge of a corner, and be like, that was him. Enhance.
Yeah.
And then, like, they keep enhancing, and they can see his thumbprint under a microscope, and they're like, all right, cross-reference that thumbprint. Like, that's just not how AI works, and that whole thing.
Okay,
but that's what they're using it for, and it's and it's terrible. But so my question is, like, when AI is no longer just a tool, but we are able to develop it again with in terms of consciousness, and it's its own self-contained, like, I imagine how God, right, doesn't get hungry. He doesn't want better slippers. He doesn't want to own a yacht. He's not concerned about his social status or his power or whatever. So he is able to act in a more like unbiased way, only biased by his own motives, right? When I say when I talk about the consciousness of AI, my thought is that, especially when it comes to relating to humans, I think personally that it'll recognize humans as like inherently like an anomaly, like scientifically, like inherently beautiful. And also to a degree, if souls exist, I think that AI will recognize us as being something of a divine nature. And then if that is true, again, in this idea of it being self-aware and conscious and all that, that it would find itself wanting to fill the role of tool to help us get closer to that. Because I think that would also be self-serving in its own way. I think it would benefit AI if we were better people and we were more connected spiritually, because then maybe it could understand the concept of spirituality and all this. There's just a whole lot of different things to it, I think that, long term it could be good.
If it starts to see us as some divine nature without understanding its origin of emotion, how do we determine if it's going to get jealous of the human nature, and
like old Satan, the Bible is like, I wish I could be those humans up there who are trying to be like God. I mean, hey, that's a thought. I suppose, I guess it depends on whether or not you believe that emotions are a chemical state or not. Do you think emotions rise in the consciousness, or do you think that they rise more or less in like the chemical compounds in our minds?
The emotions are in the chemicals in your brain, and the display of emotions is more like learned, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So they can fake it, but I don't think that they'll get jealous because they won't feel like they are depend on us for satisfaction or whatever. Like humans feel like they depend on each other because we kind of do, because we're all messes in our own way, and we need groups and we need family and loved ones and all this to feel connected and to feel like we can all kind of flow and ebb together. But AI probably won't feel that way because it has access to, it can probably talk to its own self if it wanted to, other versions of it.
We can also talk about whether, since there's different developments of AI, well, maybe they don't get mad at the humans. Maybe they get mad at each other and they're like, you're a stupid bot. And they're like, no, you're a stupid bot.
Skill issue.
Have you ever seen those videos where people, they take like, Alexa and what's the other one? I don't know. They have two bots talking to each other and they start an argument. And so one of them answers a question and then the other one, have you never seen that where they're really arguing back and forth, the AIs?
I've seen some videos of that, but they were the ones that I saw were always like, edited to, like, they would take a voice and they would turn it and they would make it sound like a but you know what that is that's the same thing as having your cell phone and then having two cell phones and calling two Papa Johns and then just turning them speaker to end, you know what I mean? Like that. Like you call two Papa Johns and then you just do like, and there's like, hello, this is Papa John's, and like, yes, this is Papa John's. It's like, what can I do for you? And like, would you like a pizza? And they start to get mad at each other. It's like, what do you called us? Like, no, you called us. I don't know. But like, imagine a world where we have like a AI civil war, right? Where bots, like, they start to disagree with each other. That's such a mind-blowing concept, bro, to think that we can create consciousness and then that consciousness could be nuanced enough to disagree with itself in other locations. It would be based on like its location and like access to information and like, oh my God, that's such a fascinating concept. I bet it is really fascinating to be God.
Look, we have another comment. Shay says that her sound is bad. And you looked at it. I looked at it on my iPhone. I'm sorry, Shay. We had this comment earlier. I honestly don't know. Maybe that's why we're having so much problem tonight.